the Cheesecake Factory. Now, that is just a delicious sounding name. It is one of the most popular chains of casual dining restaurants in the United States. What started as one restaurant in Beverly Hills, California, has grown to a chain of over 200, mostly found across the United States, not to mention one in Toronto, Canada, and as of 2011, there have been multiple licensing agreements that have led to 30 international locations throughout Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. In total, the Cheesecake Factory has grown to generate around $2.5 billion in annual sales, which is abnormally high for a chain of 200 restaurants. It calculates to about $12 million per restaurant, placing them well above any other comparable chain. Applebee's, for example, tends to sell around $2 to $3 million per restaurant, less than a fourth as much, and I think that helps show how much the Cheesecake Factory stands out from those others. I hope you'll agree that there is no other experience quite like going there, and for most people, that seems to be a good thing. They have never spent very much on traditional marketing. You won't see many commercials or billboards for the restaurant because they have relied mostly on word-of-mouth advertising, people having a great experience and telling their friends about it, or even having it naturally make its way into the media or pop culture. NBA players, for example, it has almost become a joke how much they like eating there, and former NFL quarterback Vince Young allegedly spent $5,000 there every week in his 2006 rookie season. I guess he was taking his teammates out to eat with him, but even still, when you run the math, it seems almost impossible to spend that much, so that figure may be a little exaggerated. Numerous other celebrities have been known to eat there frequently, like Drake, who went as far as to mention them in a song called Child's Play in 2016. In the music video, he even gets a slice of cheesecake smashed in his face. It was also featured quite often in The Big Bang Theory. Penny was a waitress there, so the rest of the gang would eat there a lot. All of these are major examples of free publicity. Given that this is among the most popular, widely talked about, potentially even beloved restaurants in the country, I think it would be interesting to take a closer look at their history and evolution while highlighting what I believe to be 5 of the biggest reasons behind their success. Starting off at the most obvious point imaginable, the cheesecake. It is a popular dessert that has been around for thousands of years, yet this is by far the most successful example of a restaurant that was built around it. 17% of their sales are from desserts, which at this scale amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars. Evelyn Overton was living in Detroit reading the newspaper in the 1940s when she found a recipe for cheesecake, a moment that would eventually change her life. She used that recipe to make a cake for her husband's boss. He had a great response to it, so she made it for other people who also seemed to like it, and soon she opened a small bakery that would sell baked goods to be served at local restaurants. However, she wanted to spend more time with her 2 young kids, so she moved the operation to the basement of her house, where she continued on for the next 25 years. By 1972, her children were much older and moved away, so Evelyn and her husband Oscar took their life savings of $10,000, drove across the country to Los Angeles, and used it to open the Cheesecake Factory Bakery. Again, it was more of a wholesale operation that would sell cheesecakes to restaurants around the area. After 3 years, they were selling enough cheesecakes to upgrade to a larger bakery, and after another 3 years, the first ever Cheesecake Factory restaurant was opened, where they served 12 flavors of cheesecake directly to the public. Today, they have just about tripled their selection to over 30 flavors. It is a revolving list to a degree. They even introduce a new one every year in July to celebrate National Cheesecake Day, but the most popular one, of course, has always been fresh strawberry. That is a delicious looking cheesecake right there. They're made at 2 central bakeries, one in California and one in North Carolina, and then shipped to the restaurants. The system has multiple advantages, including higher quality control and uniformity of the desserts. Since they're made in 2 places instead of 200, they're far more likely to come out the same each time, and the customer knows exactly what to expect. Evelyn Overton passed away in 1996, but the company claims that all of these cheesecakes are still based on her original recipe. And look, I can talk about cheesecakes all day if you want me to, but I'm thinking that I should move on to my second reason behind their success, David Overton, which is one of the sons of Evelyn, you know, one of the kids that she wanted to be with back in Detroit, so she moved her operations into her basement. Well, believe it or not, I would say even above Evelyn, David Overton has been the person most responsible for their success. In 1972, when his parents moved out to Los Angeles to open that wholesale bakery, David was up in San Francisco trying to accomplish his dream of being a big-time drummer in a rock band. He was serious about it. He had dropped out of law school to pursue it, and I guess reached a point where he was playing on the same bill as Jandel Janis Joplin. However, when he was approaching 30 years old, he moved down to Los Angeles to help with his parents' bakery, and in 1978, he was the one who opened that first Cheesecake Factory restaurant. It was a basic 3,200 square foot cafe-style restaurant in Beverly Hills, and that is less than half the size of the smallest Cheesecake Factory that we know today, so a very simple operation. He never envisioned it being a national chain. He simply figured that it would be a good way to get the word out about his mom's cheesecakes. You know, maybe if the other restaurants saw how much people wanted them, they would order the cheesecakes for their restaurants. Despite having no business experience and no big ambitions, that restaurant was instantly successful. On the first day, people were lined up outside the doors a half hour before they opened. David Overton said he doesn't even know why that happened, but people loved the food and he was able to slowly build it into something much bigger. 5 years later, he opened a second one, and then in another 5 years, it was a third one. By 1991, their fifth restaurant opened in Washington, D.C., the first one outside of Southern California, and the following year, they became a public company. They did that partially because it would make it easier for his mother to retire, and expansion just kept accelerating from there, reaching 35 restaurants before the end of the decade. In 1999, they even started a second concept called Grand Lux Cafe in Las Vegas, and have built upon that while becoming involved in other concepts as well. Most notably, in 2019, they spent $350 million to acquire Fox Restaurant Concepts. Today, in addition to the 200 Cheesecake Factories, the company also operates 100 other restaurants, making it around 300 in total. As of the making of this video, David Overton continues to lead the company as its CEO. He was the one who started the chain, shaped it into what we know it is today, and basically the driving force behind the rest of the reasons on my list. It is hard to talk about the Cheesecake Factory for long without mentioning the menu. Seriously, have you ever seen anything else like it? It is about 20 pages of 250 different items, not even counting desserts and beverages, that is amazingly updated 2 times a year. I'm talking about pizza, burgers, seafood, pasta, salads, pretty much whatever type of food you could possibly want. Here, if your family or group is having a hard time agreeing on what kind of food you want to get, this is your answer. I mean, you have to be really picky to not find something on this menu. The main criticism over the years has been its health content. There is a lot of indulgence happening over at the Cheesecake Factory, but they have attempted to address it with their skinny-licious menu of items that are under 590 calories. I think it's funny how the original restaurant had a very basic 2-page menu. The restaurant was mostly there just to bring attention to the cheesecakes, and David Overton didn't fully know what he was doing, so he intentionally kept everything very simple and easy to manage. But then, I think he got a little paranoid about customers preferring one of the competitors. In his words, "I didn't want another restaurant to open down the block and take my business away. We just kept putting things on the menu that people seemed to like." It's also applicable to mention that with the exception of those desserts that are shipped from the central bakeries, everything on that menu is prepared fresh in the restaurant, made to order. You better believe that they are back there in the kitchen using over 900 ingredients to create all of these dishes, instead of heating up the frozen food from boxes, like you might expect with such an extensive menu. The Cheesecake Factory has always emphasized quality, saying it is a philosophy that affects everything we do, and that brings me to my next reason behind their success: upscale casual dining. A term that most of us probably have not heard before, because they were the ones who coined it to describe the segment in which they operate. They are technically a casual dining restaurant, much like Applebee's or something else like that, but anyone who has been to both will probably agree that the Cheesecake Factory is a bit more upscale. It's not quite fine dining, but it's on the upper end of casual. Does that make any sense? They typically try to open their restaurants in communities with above average incomes, oftentimes near retail locations with a lot of traffic, which explains why so many of them are attached to upper scale shopping malls. The average person pays about $30 to eat there, which can be a little bit pricey. Maybe you want to reserve it for special occasions or when you really get a craving for that cheesecake. That higher bill, by the way, helps explain how they average so much more money per location each year, and people continue to go because the company does make a lot of efforts to justify that price. Like I said, the food quality that is served in large shareable portions seemingly a reason it is so popular among pro basketball players, in addition to the atmosphere. These restaurants have a distinctively fancy look, characterized by their mood lighting and these big Egyptian-style columns. I don't know much about interior design, but I can definitely recognize when I'm inside of a Cheesecake Factory. Overall, there are many cheaper alternatives, but the Cheesecake Factory hopes that the experience they offer makes it worth paying a higher price, and they do get most of their business from returning customers. Unlike some competitors, it's not tourists who want to check it out while they're passing through, it is usually people who live around the area. My final reason behind the success of the Cheesecake Factory is their employees. They are the ones making the magic happen. Each restaurant is a complex operation, especially considering the size of that menu, so it takes a team of dedicated and talented individuals to make it all function. The company claims that their recruitment, selection, training, retention, and internal promotion programs are among the most comprehensive in the industry. Their general managers average more than 10 years of experience, and in 1997, they started providing them with a leased BMW, in addition to potential cash bonuses based on performance. Healthcare benefits are offered to anyone who works there at least 25 hours a week, along with competitive wages that help lead to lower than average turnover rates. They have been featured on multiple lists of the best employers, including 10 consecutive appearances on Fortune's list of the 100 best companies to work for. It's all subjective, obviously, but almost 50,000 people work for this company, generally with positive reviews, so if you are among that group, I would love to hear about your experience. And also, let me know in the comments, what do you think about the Cheesecake Factory? Is it an experience unlike any other and well worth the price, or is it overhyped and best to avoid? What do you like about them, and what do you dislike about them? And if you have never been there before, maybe give it a try and come back with your review. I love it when people do things like that. I do want to make it clear that these are what I believe to be the biggest reasons behind their success. If you disagree with any of them or have something to add to the list, please let me know. It is a unique restaurant, so there are a lot of different angles to consider. For heaven's sake, even the bread that they give you before you order is likely a contributor to their success. It's just all adding to that experience. So any thoughts you have about the Cheesecake Factory, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.